All right, I'm super excited to jump into our next episode of the Stronger Together podcast. And I have had the best time part of this podcast meeting people, not even talking about and sharing the messages from the work that I've done. I've had more excitement and learning from meeting other people. And as I watched the intro video, one of the things I thought about, two things actually. One, I need to update it. A lot of those were a couple years ago. And two, I had a chance to meet our next guest for the first time this year at Nightscape, and we didn't get a picture. So I'm going to have to make sure that happens at FETC because as I have meeting all of these fabulous educators and speakers over the last few weeks as part of doing this work for Nightscape and then doing this now for FETC. I want to make a great collection of all the people I had a chance to see and meet digitally as well as in person. So I would like to welcome Liz in. And Liz, how did we not get a picture in New York? How did
I
that happen?
don't know. I didn't even realize that until you just said it. So
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because it was the first time I had been there, and there was so many people I saw for the first time, and I really wanted to be present and meet individuals and talk with them. And I think that's not that it took away from taking pictures, but we were so excited to be back in person and back at an event.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly what happened. I was doing the same. I came home and I didn't have as many pictures as I normally would. So I think we're all just interacting and connecting, and that was completely worth it too.
Absolutely. And, I had a chance to meet you for the first time, but for our viewers and listeners who
Mhm.
haven't had a chance to hear you speak or read your work or know you, tell us who you are, where you're calling in from or videoing in from, and your journey into education.
Sure. So I'm Liz Bostwick, and I was in the classroom for 16 years, teaching grades 2 and 4, which was completely a joy to be able to be in the classroom. And those are some of my favorite memories of teaching and learning. And then I grew into a technology integration specialist. And along that journey, I was simultaneously also doing just some of my own consulting. So I've done quite a few keynotes, featured speaker events, and then I've done some in-person work with districts directly, really on makerspace, project-based learning, and how do we really create those authentic and meaningful learning experiences for students.
Yeah, and I think that really is the root of your work, and we can just dive right into it. If you had a chance, Liz's Twitter handle's right on her account, and one of the first things you'll see is her big banner about innovation and taking the leap. And tell us how you decided, like, this is what I want to write about. You said you spoke at a lot of events and were a keynote, and
Yeah.
this is where you wanted to put your focus of your book.
So going back to my early experiences, when I was in college, I actually was trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. I loved
That's
psychology.
like everybody else, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I went in thinking I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And then it was interesting. The last thing I ever thought I would do would be to go into education. Honestly, my experiences, they weren't
Really?
awful. I have so many wonderful teachers I can think of. The ones that stand out to me are the ones that were deeply engaging, that gave me something meaningful to work on, something that I could feel connected and that was relevant to my life. And so through my experience of just being in college and going through a lot of my psychology courses, I began to recognize how education could look different and that it did
Mhm.
look different in different places. And so within my first year of teaching, I thought I was going in, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted
Yeah,
to
good
look
luck.
like. But as you know, it's no fault to any school. It's just the way that our systems are. Every state is different. There are mandates, we have curriculums. And
Sure.
before you knew it, I wasn't teaching the way I had envisioned myself teaching.
Oh, that's hard to hear, but yeah, it happens a lot.
It sure does. And so for me, I needed to reconnect with the joy of teaching. And so I began to very gradually shift a lot of the work that I did. A lot of that came through the lens of my own children. I was a young mom at the time as well. Not young mom, but like
No, I understand.
I was a young teacher. I was newer in the classroom, and just having my own children, I began to look through the world through their lens and just the importance of play and experience. And it brought me back to why I went into education to begin with. So I began looking very slowly at how could I bring that into my room? How could I take awesome practices and interweave that with the structure of everything that I had to, work within?
And I think that really brings you into the work that I see you do is getting people excited, looking at innovation. And for those individuals who haven't had a chance to pick up your book, Take the Leap and Ignite a Culture of Innovation, what is going to be one of their big takeaways, in your opinion?
Well, to begin with, just LEAP is an acronym. And so that acronym stands for creating a luminous culture, one that shines a light on every individual's potential. We know that in the classroom, all of our kids have inner potential. It might look different. Every individual has various strengths. And how do we draw on those in the classroom? And then the E is for empowered learning. How do we foster intrinsic motivation so that our students want to be involved? Well, how do we get them to want to be at school and continue their learning rather than being engaged in anything that's compliance based? We know there's a time and place for compliance, but ultimately my goal is to look at how we can really empower our students to want to learn. And then the A is for authentic learning.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring authenticity, hands-on learning, whether it's makerspace, project-based learning. And one thing, well, I'll come back to that in just a second. And then the P is for potential, because ultimately it's not just our students' potential, but we want our teachers to reach and feel like they are striving to reach their full potential too. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And so I know you can relate to that as well. Like we're really looking at how do we create the culture for innovation? But I do want to say, as much as it's take the leap, one thing I acknowledge in my book that I want to be like one of the main takeaways, to go back to your question, is the fact that it doesn't have to be completely diving in head first. It doesn't have to
Sure.
be, it's not that we're giving all control over to our students. We can be mindful in it. We can start out small. We can work within our comfort zone and grow from there.
And I think that's really important as you talk about it, because sometimes people read certain phrases and take it differently. And you're
Mhm.
not telling them just to jump in without a plan. Like, how would you articulate a plan to teachers or educators who want to start to do some of this work, the makerspace work, the innovation work, some of the work that they take from your book? Where do you start?
Yeah, to me, it's always with culture first.
Hmm.
Listening to students, what do you want your classroom to look like, feel like? What do you want that to be? I incorporated a lot of student voice. They developed a lot of like, what is student leadership in the classroom? How do we grow from there? So those are some options, starting with involving student voice and what the classroom looks like, feels like, some activities they want to do, but then additionally take something that you're already doing and renovate it. So don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel, but if you have, like, for example, if you have an ELA activity and you've done it one way for a couple of years now, what's another
Yeah.
way? Could we incorporate technology? Could we put a different spin on it? Can students be acting something out? Could they be showing their work in demonstrating their learning in various ways? So those are some ideas. And even when it comes to project-based learning, it doesn't have to be this month-long project. You could really do a mini project-based learning activity within a couple of days over a couple of class periods. So, there's so many ways that we can begin and start small and grow from there.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way to approach it and to take it in stages. And you're not just saying, also not just saying jump in and wing it. Like, I think from what you're saying is, not only is it taking a risk and jumping in, that you have a plan and a progression. And how do you, one of the things I hear for teachers, and I'm going to just be selfish in a sense, I was an elementary teacher and was a principal of an elementary school, and they often say, well, our kids can't do that because they're either too young or too whatever. What is your message to those teachers to take the leap and jump right in?
Well, one thing I know just from experience, I'm fortunate to work with schools um, locally, but also around the world. And one thing I can share with you from my experience is that even going into classrooms, my own, going into other teachers as a technology integration specialist, is that our youngest learners are capable of more than we sometimes anticipate. They have skill sets and are more intuitive than we think to things. However, with that said, one thing I do typically share with teachers is to start small. What I mean by that is, even if you, regardless of what age you're at, it's okay to start with a small group of 2 or 3. Create it
Hmm.
as a center or an activity in the classroom. So start small, work with a few kids that you feel confident with that activity, and then figure out, like, reflect on that. How did that go?
Sure.
What do you need to retool? And then start with another group. And before you know it, you're going to see that things take off. One thing that I found, that through that strategy, we would oftentimes see different strengths. Sometimes the kids, you might think like, okay, I'm going to start with this group. I'm confident. there's not going to be any issues here. But although that might be true, and those kids can become, they can go ahead and then turnkey as well with their peers. But one thing that I found, like with technology integration, for example, using tools or even coding robotics, sometimes it was the students that teachers might not anticipate that would
Really?
be savvy with those. You'd find out that those were the kids that really took off. And what I loved about that is that it really changed our classroom environment, because what would happen is that some of our other students who you might say are maybe academically stronger in one way, they would begin to recognize the strengths of their peers and then call on those peers to say, hey, can you help me with this? And so you saw everybody elevate from that. So even your youngest students are capable. And I think it's really about identifying what are their various strengths, what are their interests, and then leveraging those. And of course, starting with small groups.
Yeah, and I think, all of that is critical. And when I see that, or learning centers or different challenges that our elementary team has, I think having that opportunity is critical. So if you haven't had a chance, make sure to check out Liz's website. It is down below. Her Twitter handle is on there. The book is a great read, and we're going to jump into what she's doing now. But I didn't want to come off of this before you had a chance to check out her work individually, and all the impact that she is making. And you're also now making an impact in a different realm. So
Yeah.
what are you doing now? Share with us your current journey.
Yeah, so currently I'm also working with Canva for education, and I'm working as a learning consultant with them. And so within this role, it's really wonderful because I'm able to bring all of my strengths and areas of expertise, combine it with Canva, and work with districts. And so through that, it's really neat. So we will work with districts. It's not just about the tool. We really bring in, how do we deepen learning? How do we inspire intrinsic motivation? How do we spark creativity within our students and teachers? And one thing that I hear frequently from districts is that after we work with them, they see that there's more joy. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, I have one of my districts down south in Georgia. They actually said, they're like, we feel like this is bringing joy back to teaching and learning for teachers after just all the struggles of the pandemic. And of course, we're still
Sure.
feeling the ripple effects of that.
Right. Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you've seen? So if somebody is the naysayer and they're like, this technology thing or this, type of learning, it doesn't work. Show me assessments, show me scores, whatever. What are you seeing that results in joy?
Yeah, well, I've actually, a couple of teachers have shared out. We have a couple in New Jersey who have shared out pictures of their students creating in Canva, and the student had created on their graphic. They're like, I actually love learning today. And so you're hearing that from the students too. And again, it's not just about the tool. You can take any tool and embed it and link it into your curriculum, the content. But what's nice is that it's giving students the opportunity to demonstrate their learning in a way that's unique to them. So I think that's where you begin to reach students and they begin to have ownership. We've also heard people say, we haven't had to assign anything to students. They've wanted to go home and continue working on it. They're asking, can I go home and keep creating?
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I think that's critical as we move into this, trying to create that engagement and to try to create this discovery learning, um, in our current classrooms. And one of the things I really respect about your work and a lot of the individuals now, as we look at solution providers like Canva and others, they're not bringing in salespeople; they're bringing in educators. And how has your work or your previous work in the classrooms or in education helped you in this current role with Canva?
Yeah, and that's so true. A lot of times I actually do explain that, like, we're not reps. We want to learn about the district, right? We want to hear what's going well, what are any of your pain points, how can we help? How do we create sessions that really support teachers? And of course, ultimately, how do we deepen learning and engagement with students?
Yeah, and I think so. What brings you joy? You talk about bringing joy in, and you talk like what does it do? What do you do for joy, like in the classrooms and different things that you like?
Yeah, there's quite a few things I do when it comes to creating joy in my own life. So, when it comes to just working with teachers, for me, I love being able to see teachers have that light bulb moment, just like we do with students of, aha, I see how this can transform my classroom. Whether it's a tool like Canva, for example, or whether it's Makerspace. Sometimes people are like, okay, where do I have time for that? But when you can see, when they start making the connection of, okay, this could be a 20-minute creation activity, I can actually bring in a mentor text, I can incorporate ELA, and all my students are actively engaged, and I'm not putting out fires or having to deal with behaviors. Like, to me, that brings me joy.
Perfect. Another thing that I always like to know when these guests that come on who speak all over the country, who present, who do all this work, where do you get your learning from?
Oh my goodness, from all of you, right? So, I mean, honestly, I have such a great network of people. It would be a long list to go through, but I'm always learning from our network on all over our social media. We have so many amazing people that we're connected with. And so I'm always reading blogs, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading books. And so I think all of that fuels my fire and helps me to continue to learn as well.
So, in talking about learning, we're going to be attending an event shortly down in New Orleans, FETC. What are you looking forward to about going to FETC?
I'm really excited to just learn just how educators are using technology in creative ways. And there's so many different sessions I'm looking forward to attending. I'm also looking forward to connecting with people one-on-one, in groups, and just learning what people are learning there and just being able to share together.
And I know you're doing a few sessions. What share for those of individuals who are coming down to New Orleans? What are you doing? I know you think you're doing some individually. You're doing some as a group. What does your agenda look like for as a presenter side of it?
Yes. So on Monday, I think it's Monday, I have two sessions. One is a collaborative session with Tisha Richmond, and we are doing Canva to elevate teaching and learning. And she and I are coming together to we both have very complementary messages that we are sharing, and how we can really elevate teaching and learning using Canva with all of our skill sets as well. And then in the afternoon, we also have a collaborative conversation. And so that's going to be with Tisha Richmond, myself, Amy Dallaire, and Janice Wintermeyer. And we're inviting some of our districts in. So it's less about us and we're more facilitating and highlighting how districts around the world are leveraging Canva and using it creatively in their districts, especially for student projects. And then, of course, we're going to have some different interactive activities through that time, because I think it's like a 2-hour collaborative conversation, hands-on experience. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's Tuesday that I have an author book signing. So that will be fun just to connect and share as well.
Awesome. Yes, your session Monday is in the morning at 8:30 with three other amazing educators. So make sure to check that out if you are down there and meet the author. You are going to be on the floor at 3:15 Tuesday, January 24th. So if you are at New Orleans, make sure to check out Liz's sessions on Monday and check her out at the author booth on Tuesday as well at 3:15, as well as just being around, meeting all the great things that you are doing. One of the things I like to also, like I said at the beginning, I like to learn from individuals as well. When you're going into an event, this is for some people their first big national event. What would be your recommendation for first-time participants?
Well, I think anytime you go into a big event, it is helpful to kind of map out a little bit of your priority sessions of the day that you want to go to, any events where you can network and connect with people as well. I remember back, I don't want to say it's 2015 was one of my first conferences that I attended with our district, but it's like I went in and I had like this whole matrix created of all the sessions, but then really when it came down to it, it was almost impossible for me to get from point A to point B. So really prioritize each day the sessions that you are looking for that are going to help you learn and grow.
Yeah, and I think that's important because sometimes it can just be overwhelming. It's just so much happening so fast. And with your two sessions are Monday and then your authors on Tuesday, are you going to have any time to attend sessions or do anything?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Even at NiceGate, I was attending sessions. I love to be able to pop into different sessions. I oftentimes look at who's presenting and topics that are being presented. I like to go into presentations. I may not know somebody who's presenting, but sometimes I really love that because it allows me to connect. It allows me to kind of diversify as well. So I think being able to explore different sessions is powerful. And remember to hydrate. So they get
Absolutely.
moving, pack some snacks. Anytime I go to conferences, I make sure that I have a backpack and I have my snacks on me and some water, and just making sure that I stay fueled.
And good sneakers. Be walking
Yes.
around and things. So for sure. So one of the things, just listening to you, seeing your work, seeing your sessions at FETC, there's not a single solo session you have. You're doing it with either Tisha or other people. So one of the things I always ask as our last question to our guests is, what does stronger together mean to you? And you exemplify it, but I'd love to hear from your lens what that means.
It's funny that you ask that. I mean, I know it's a question that you ask, but at the same time, Matthew, I was just talking to somebody this morning, and I was just talking about how I am such a collaborator. I'm very visionary oftentimes, but I love collaborating. And I think the reason we are all stronger together is because we literally bring different strengths to the table, that allow us to each leverage our own strengths, add those to the team, and really become the best we can. And thinking of that, I think about all the schools that I work with, all the work that I did in my classroom. One thing, if you listen to any podcasts or even in my book, one thing I always pay credit to is the team I worked with, the administrators I worked alongside, my classroom teaching teammates that were around me. We worked collaboratively. We planned everything together. So whether it's the work I'm doing now, the work I did then, everything has to do with collaboration, because ultimately we are stronger together.
Wonderful. Well, Liz, it was awesome to get a chance to chat again, to hear about your sessions. For those of you who haven't had a chance to check out the book, make sure to check out Take the Leap, Ignite a Culture of Innovation. See Liz at any of these events, reach out to her. Her website is down below and her Twitter handle is right there on her photo. So you do so many great things. It is great to meet you. When we're in New Orleans, we have to get a photo. That is a must.
We sure will. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I know you have some great things coming up that I can't wait to hear about and continue to learn and grow from you. Because as I say, the end of each episode, that we are stronger together when we put we over me. Have a great day, Liz, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. You too.